This is Sbusiso Lawrence Ntaka. He posted a gruesome video on the 17th of December, 2024, right after murdering his ex-girlfriend in the most savage way. It would be his last post because he then went on and took his own life. What you will discover as the story unfolds is that he felt so justified to end his ex-girlfriend's life. In fact, he outlines reasons as to why he murdered her, and then went on and did something far much worse. The language of this video will be gender-specific. Not that women do not also cause harm. They do too. But as Ntaka wrote in his book The Gift of Fear, he wrote that on the language of violence, women can proudly relinquish recognition, because here at least, to be politically correct would be statistically incorrect. We will draw out lessons from his book even throughout the course of this video. Today's story takes us to a province in South Africa that lies on the eastern coast, along the Indian Ocean. The province of KwaZulu-Natal, in an area called Umzinto. Two young people by the names of Sbusiso Lawrence Ntaka, a 32-year-old primary school teacher, and Nontobeko Cele, a college student who was also upgrading her metric results, had been in a relationship. Their relationship had flourished so much so that Sbusiso even paid the lobola or bride price for Nontobeko. What the payment of lobola entails in the African setup is that a man, after paying it, is formally recognized as the one courting the girl. He is considered a part of the family, and from the point of view of tradition, the two are recognized as engaged. So Sbusiso had taken this big step, and all seemed to be going well for the young couple. They even had a 2-year-old child together, the paternity of whose Sbusiso would later question after committing his heinous acts, but more on that later. So all was going well for the pair, until it wasn't. Cracks started showing in their relationship. Both Nontobeko and Sbusiso were quiet by nature, so it was hard for their families to fully realize what was going on with them. However, in early 2024, there was one incident that stood out. Nontobeko was walking along the road with her cousin, when Sbusiso out of nowhere ran her over with his car, and then fled the scene. The condition was so serious that she had to be hospitalized for some time. After being discharged from the hospital, she was given the Road Accident Fund or RAF, an insurance fund for the road traffic accident that she had been a victim of. Her family was thankful that she was okay. At that point, it didn't quite occur to the family that Sbusiso had any malicious intent. However, in hindsight, it is clear that it was no accident at all. So when Nontobeko received the money from the Road Accident Fund, Sbusiso was not too happy about it. In the video post that he made right after murdering her, Sbusiso went on to complain about how he had done everything for her, spent so much money on her, so that she should be happy. And yet when she received the Road Accident Fund, she couldn't even share it with him. He had the guts to mention this, in spite of being the one who hit her. This accident was the last straw for Nontobeko. She cut all lines of communication with Sbusiso. She even blocked his number. He later started creating Facebook accounts under different names, in order to access her. But she would block him whenever she discovered it was him. Her friends say that he was obsessed with her and even started stalking her. By this point, it is clear that Nontobeko had become aware of how unsafe she was around Sbusiso. It would later come to light that Sbusiso had once threatened to kill her with a knife, when they were still dating. So she became very cautious of even being found around him. The question that then arises is, how did she end up in his company at the point of her untimely death? Well, Sbusiso, fully aware that Nontobeko wanted nothing to do with him, devised a plan. He lured her to be in his presence, by using their child as bait, and Christmas as the pretext. So, on the 17th of December, 2024, he requested to go with her and their little one to buy clothes and other necessities for the child. The fact that Christmas was just a few days away gave credibility to his request. Therefore, Nontobeko went. However, she was smart enough not to go alone. She asked one of her sisters to accompany her. So they went, did their shopping. They even went to the beach at some point to chill, before Sbusiso finally drove them back to Nontobeko's house. Now this is where things took a tragic turn. When her sister and the child disembarked, Nontobeko remained for a few minutes. That's when Sbusiso started hitting her. People passing by noticed that there was an altercation between them. When he noticed that people were watching and would have intervened, he locked the car and drove off to a remote location. It is from this location that he would go ahead and stab her multiple times in her chest and neck area. It was such a brutal attack that all her clothes were soaked in blood. So was the passenger's seat. As if that was not bad enough, he went on and took pictures of Nontobeko's lifeless body, and as awful as this will sound, posted them to social media. Mind you, his Facebook account alone had more than 19,000 followers. Afterwards, he proceeded to take a video explaining how, according to him, she had victimized him, even alleging that the child, whom he had been supporting all along and even from just buying clothes for, was apparently not his. At the end of the video, he pointed his camera to the lifeless body of Nontobeko, showing what he had done to her. And then, he went on, and just left her body in the middle of the dust road with a broken knife next to her. Yes, he just left her, massacred and lying in the middle of the road. Such an indignity, as if her life never mattered. Let me just highlight one thing right here. How he treated her in death is not so different from how he treated her in life. With indifference. He had always wanted to harm her in a big way. And if you are currently in a relationship where you are invalidated, treated with disregard, beaten, that's a sign. Do not wait for things to get any worse. How someone treats you shows you with what value they perceive you. But most importantly, what you choose to tolerate may reinforce or break down that perception. When you choose to stay where you are beaten, insulted, and disrespected, no one can respect you because in the first place, you do not even respect yourself enough to leave. Read the signs. Violence, as Gavin de Becker put it, does not happen in isolation. It is just a link in a chain, except we tend to focus on individual links. Though we want to think of violence as a singular event, it is actually a process, a chain in which the violent outcome is only one link. In short, by the time it's getting to physical abuse, you would have probably endured verbal, emotional, and psychological abuse, which are worse forms than even the physical because of how subtle, lingering and erosive they can be. Therefore, do not take the slighting remarks that he makes about you lightly. How he treats you is how he feels about you. Do not make excuses for him. And why would you stay where you are slighted? Just why? In any case, the video and confession that Sbusiso posted sparked a lot of outrage, and rightly so. When authorities went to the area, they found the body of Nontobeko along a dust road in a sugarcane plantation. A kilometer from where she was found was the body of Sbusiso Ntaka, hanging from a tree. This dealt a severe blow to both families. Both were in a state of shock, especially because both sets of parents learnt of the tragic news from their neighbors. The video and pictures posted by Sbusiso had gone viral, and it is neighbors and friends that rushed to verify the news with the parents. Unfortunately, that is how both sets of parents came to learn of the tragedy. Nontobeko's family could not believe what they were seeing. It felt like a bad dream to them. But then many people remembered the abuse Nontobeko had suffered at the hands of Sbusiso. Her uncle went on to state that they just didn't realize that it would go as far as murder, and called Sbusiso's actions as cowardly. On the other side, Sbusiso's parents were very surprised by his actions. His mother went on to say that he was usually a quiet person, but had a short temper starting from his childhood, especially if things did not go his way. They couldn't recall him being in a single fight with anyone. This horrendous act of violence left them very surprised. His father, however, did note that the day before the incident, he gave some of his key items away, almost as if preparing for a big transition. The question that then arises is, are there ever grounds that can justify taking the life of your partner? Let's go ahead and look at the reasons Sbusiso gave. 1. He had spent a lot of money on Nontobeko, only to be dumped. 2. He had also grown suspicious about the paternity of their child, even though he was fully devoted to the child as a real father would be, until the time of the tragedy. 3. When she got the road agency fund, she did not quite share it with him. notwithstanding that he was the cause of the deliberate accident. These are the reasons Sbusiso gave. Please feel free to drop your comments in the comments section below, whether you think he was justified or not. According to his video, he felt so justified by the above reasons that he took her life. Which begs the question, then why did he have to end his own life as well? If he was so justified, why didn't he stand by his actions? This seems to have been a twisted act of rage, and the video proved to be self-serving. He got to have the last say, and gave himself the privilege to paint the narrative in a way that would make people sympathize with him, despite the monstrosity of his acts. And guess what? That is exactly what has happened. Several people feel for him. And yet the real victim was the woman who, in life lived in fear of him, and in death died in terror of him. Alone and scared. The family of Nontobeko has been very clear in refuting all his claims. Firstly, they have repeatedly stated that he was well aware of the paternity of the child. And secondly, Nontobeko had broken ties with him early on. The amount of support his actions have garnered from fellow men on social media, and in general, is alarming. One would think that his heinous acts would horrify everyone. But that has not been the case. Could Nontobeko have seen it coming? Her actions prior to the incident prove that she saw the possibility of it. It seems to be the reason why she cut ties with him. Why would a girl in love, and in a healthy relationship with a guy who spends on her, as he claims to have done, all of a sudden block him? It also seems to be the reason she carried an extra person when they went shopping. She had done what any responsible woman would do, by ending the relationship and cutting ties with Sbusiso. Unfortunately, that was not enough. The lessons we learn from this tragedy are that when you have reason to be concerned about your safety around your partner or ex-partner, A. Do not under any circumstance be found in their presence, because it is only in person that physical harm can be done. Secondly, listen to people's words. If your intimate partner has actually said they can harm you, even before they act on their word, believe it. This was the case with Christian Cele, who was murdered by his girlfriend. She had repeatedly told him, and showed him that she was capable of hurting him. But he never quite considered the threat with the gravity it deserved. The reason words to harm you from someone who should love you should be taken seriously is because, 1. They should be loving you, not threatening you, and 2. They have already advanced mentally in entertaining the idea of harming you so much, that they are freely expressing it in speech without any inhibition. In short, barriers that would inhibit them from harming you are being broken in their mind. That matters a lot. Thirdly, it should be even more concerning if they have acted on their words before. In Nontobeko's case, as far as we know, he had once threatened to stab her with a knife. He then went on to run her over with his car. Under no circumstance should she or any of her relatives been in his presence, because he wanted to harm her, one way or the other. Besides, he could have bought clothes for the baby and simply dropped them off. Fourthly, and most importantly, never ever downplay your intuition. If you feel someone can harm you, there are reasons that your mind has arrived at that conclusion. So when you do decide to stay away indeed. And no, you are not being extra by taking your safety so seriously. When you keep having physical contact with someone intent on hurting you, a court order will not protect you. A restraining order will not keep a killer from harming you. Government legislature will be powerless when you avail yourself physically to someone who means ill. It is the in-person meeting that counts. And it can be under the most compelling pretext. Do not go. In another recent case in South Africa, a woman, heavily pregnant with triplets, was lured to her death by her estranged boyfriend. He asked if he could escort her to the hospital for delivery. She was even surprised by the offer. But she went. That was the last her family heard from her. She was later discovered dead, and it is actually the autopsy that showed that she was about to deliver 3 boys, as opposed to twins. Such a big loss. And so, if you have any reason to worry, do not go. Stay safe, and if possible, go so far away that the person that you are worried about will not know your new physical address. Start a new life. Finally, you can't tell by looking. Every person has potential to hurt. Many people who perform monstrous acts are otherwise just normal-looking people. You can only tell once you get to know someone. What happened to Nontobeko is so sad. Let's keep her beautiful memory alive. And let us give her death meaning. May it save even one life out there. Stay safe.